Please welcome Luke Downing.
Good morning, LARACON! One off the bucket list. Jeffrey will be pleased. It's so great to be back. It's wonderful to be back and to be able to speak again, to catch up with many old friends, to meet so many new people as well. I mean, when I looked around and saw how many hands went up, first time at LARACON, oh, that's incredible. Perhaps you've joined the community recently, maybe you've been waiting to come to LARACON for a long time. Whatever the case, have a fantastic 2 days. Come and say hello. I want to meet as many as possible. It's going to be fantastic. I was thinking about that change and progress, how the community keeps moving forward. As I was preparing the talk, same name kept coming back to my mind, Tobias Petri. Where is he? Where's Tobias? Here he is, right at the front. Thanks, Tobias. Can everyone stare at him? Just stare awkwardly at Tobias for like 2 minutes, because it takes so much pressure off of me. Anyway, I raised Tobias because he was in the audience at LARACON 2022. And at the time he was on Twitter, he had 2,000 or 3,000 followers. And every single day, without fail, he would publish a new database tip for Laravel developers. And it wasn't AI spam, it wasn't filler content, it was world-class tips from the mind of a man who seems to be the oracle of databases. Pun intended. Thank you very much. He wasn't getting the recognition he deserved. There's no doubt about that. In fact, after the conference, he put out a tweet. He didn't even think anybody would recognize him. So I was thinking, what's Tobias doing now in 2024? What's happened over the last 2 years? Well, I had a quick look at his Twitter account, and I'm not jealous at all, but it's 4 times mine. He's at 20,000 followers. He has a successful website, newsletter, blog. He recently published a book all about databases, which you should go and purchase if you haven't already. On release, that generated 70,000 euros, right? 70,000 euros from a book launch. He's nearly got a Lamborghini. And later today, he's not going to be sat in the audience, he's going to be on stage talking about scaling databases with Laravel. Isn't that progress? Is that a round of applause worthy? Eh? Sorry for embarrassing you, Tobias. But now I can say everyone clapped during my LARACON talk, so win-win. Yeah. So what are we here to talk about? Well, Tobias' example isn't an isolated one, because so many developers find their stride through Laravel. So many developers, perhaps you included, have found your passion with Laravel, and it's spurred you forward. It's this catalyst for progress and success. I know for myself, I learned more from Laravel, Laracasts, the forums, in 1 month than in an entire year at college. Hands down, I got more experience in that 1 month. And I thought, well, what is Laravel trying to teach me? And the same thing kept coming back. It taught me what programming was really about, because up until that point, if my gran had come up and said, "Oh, what do you do for a living, Luke?" She wasn't a Macbeth, which I don't know why I did that. Anyway, sorry, gran, moving on. "What do you do for a living, Luke?" We're going with it. I would have said, "Oh, I write code for a living." Have you said that before? I write code for a living. Well, Laravel debunks that. That's a myth, a half-truth, right out of the box with one of these. The mystical, magical 3-line comments. Oh, we've talked about these so many times. I'm not going to labor the point. But perhaps in case you are new, you'll find these throughout the code base. They're always 3 lines long. Each line is always 3 characters less than the line before, excluding punctuation. And we love to talk about them because they're beautiful and they set our framework apart from the rest. But who actually benefits? Who actually benefits from the comments? Does the PHP binary give Taylor gold coins every time he writes one of these comments? No, it skips right over. What about senior developers? Oh, we extol the virtues of the 3-line comment. We love them. But you've read them hundreds, if not thousands of times. So when you come across them in the code base, what do? You scroll right past. You say, they're for the juniors. And the juniors, well, they do benefit from the comments. But they don't even notice the formatting because they're so intent on what the comment says. It's only when they're senior developers that they say, we've got these beautiful comments. By which time, guess what? They've read them hundreds, if not thousands of times. They scroll right past. There is a very, 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 very small minority of the community that legitimately benefit from a comment formatted like this. If the comment was 4 lines long, if the comment was 5 lines long, if each line was slightly different in length, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't know any better. And yet, that's 700 people. I'm willing to bet that the majority of us agree it's worth spending 10 to 15 minutes selecting the words and the phrases and the punctuation necessary to build the 3-line comment. And I'm confident saying that because I know many of us have tried to do it on our own apps with varying success, right? There's a massive lesson in that for me. Because if I genuinely think it's worth spending 15 minutes trying to write a comment, then I have to agree that it's worth spending 15 minutes naming a variable. And I have to agree that it's worth spending 15 minutes reformatting that class so that it looks appealing to a developer. And I have to agree that it's worth spending 15 minutes writing a test for that piece of code that I'm pretty sure nobody is ever going to touch again. Why? Because Laravel teaches that programming is so much more than writing code. Well, if we can learn that lesson from a comment in the framework, would you not agree that every feature is in fact a lesson? Every feature in this framework has something it can teach you and I about development that can improve us as developers. So here's what I want to do. I'll give you the comments for free. I want to look at 2 more lessons. 2 more lessons. And we're not going to dive deep into the belly of the beast, you know? I'm not going to be uncovering functions and classes and files you've never seen before. There will be plenty of that over the next 2 days. I want to take a look at the code that you write every single day. The code that you're so familiar with, you almost class it as boilerplate. It's boring, it's mundane, but guess what? There are lessons even in that code. And if we can unlock the process to learning, then you can learn from every other feature in the framework. I want to start somewhere blindingly obvious. Web.php. I don't know about you, but if I clone an existing Laravel repository, the very first file I open is web.php. And I was thinking about that. Why web.php? Why do I view web.php as the heart of Laravel? I don't open App Service Provider. I don't open composer.json. If I'm browsing Laravel on GitHub, I go to web.php. And it became apparent to me that it's because it provides a perfect overview of the functionality of a Laravel application without ever having to open a single class. I'm going to prove it to you. You've never seen this website before. You probably know what it's about already. But you've never seen this website before, right? We'll take a look through web.php. I'll ask a few questions, and if you participate, there'll be swag at the end. So awesome swag, next level swag, so make sure you participate. I'll give you the first one for free. You've seen this route a million times. It's the route you see whenever you install a new Laravel application. If we have a quick peek inside welcome, yeah, it's the Laravel splash screen. What can you learn about the repository from that? Well, obviously, we're not quite in production yet, are we? If we're still showing the Laravel splash screen on the home page, it's not quite ready for prime time. All right, so you think, let's move forward. And we see the dashboard here, very similar. This one has middleware attached, auth and verified. So here's the first question. What does auth and verified do? Someone want to answer? What does auth and verified do? It's not a trick question. Well, it's like 40 people. I'll go with you. Checked if you're logged in. Thank you very much. And what about verified? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to be logged in. You also have to have a valid email address, right? Yeah? So we know what from that? There's a user model. The user has an email address. And we've already given thought to the service we're going to use to send those emails out. Now, you might think that's the default in Laravel, isn't it? Yes. But from web.php, we know that nothing has changed. It is that way. We don't have to look in app/models. You can get that from 2 words in web.php. So you push forward and you think, we've got our first group, all protected by the auth middleware. Well, that being the case, you have to be logged in to see any of these routes. And then you look at these 3 routes here and you think, they look awful familiar. I've seen those routes before, profile controller routes. Anyone know which scaffolding project I used to build this app? Breeze. That was really good. Wave. Wait, who said that? Breeze, thank you. You've bagged some swag. So Breeze, isn't that interesting? You look at 3 routes in web.php, you haven't installed dependencies, you haven't looked at composer.json, and yet you can tell me I use Breeze, and in the back of your mind, things are going on. You're thinking, all right, not Jetstream, okay, so we don't have Teams support, and we can't manage sessions, we don't have the profile images, but we have register and login and email verification and password reset. I wonder which stack it's using. Well, can't be 100%, but we're returning a blade view here, so probably one of the blade stacks. And that's happening for free subconsciously, right? Just from looking at web.php. And then we come to the first real, let's call them real roots of the application, all about parrots. Nobody should be surprised. Whenever I see a block of roots like this, I always go straight to the name. Create, store, edit, update, destroy. Create, store, edit, update, destroy. Where have I heard those words before? What are we dealing with? CRUD, thank you, a CRUD resource. So again, your brain starts ticking. If it's a CRUD resource and this is a parrot controller, there's a model called parrot, right? So you know without looking in the app models directory that there's a user and a parrot, and because this is behind auth middleware, users obviously control that CRUD resource. There are a couple of missing methods here. Anyone want to tell me what they are? Thank you very much, index and show. Oh, where are they? No worries, I'm sure we can come back to it later. An experienced Laravel developer will see this code and think, actually, there's a refactor here. I can clean this code up. You come to the top and you say, OK, let's do a root resource. Heads to parrots, parrot controller class. Oh, we said there's a couple of methods missing. We'll drop those in. Let's get rid of all of that boilerplate. And within 3 minutes of seeing this file, you've created your first pull request to the project. Isn't that amazing? An experienced Laravel developer can do that without seeing any other source code. And then you go, the hidden index and show methods. There they are. Outside of the auth flow. Oh, well, there's some intent about the application there. It's a public index of parrots. OK. It's a very realistic app. And you notice, well, the name for the index is not parrots.index, but users.parrots.index. What do we call that kind of route in Laravel? Anyone? Nested resource route, thank you very much. A nested resource route. So now, we haven't seen the models or the database, but we know that users have many parrots and that parrots belong to a user from seeing that route. We know, without looking at the parrots table, that there's a foreign key to the users table, all from one file in this application. I think that's incredible. How is it possible to gain this much information about an app that we pick up maybe 5-10 minutes ago? Well, you could say I'm a very experienced Laravel developer. Actually, I know my stuff. And that's true. There are many experienced Laravel developers here. But if you give yourself all the credit for this stuff, you miss the lesson Laravel is trying to teach you. So humble yourselves and ask, what is Laravel doing to allow this? And the answer is, Laravel is ordinary and obvious. Laravel is so ordinary and so obvious. And that sounds like a slur. It's not. It's the highest compliment I could pay the framework. Laravel stands out as being boringly obvious amidst so many frameworks that are trying to be very clever and convoluted. Routing in Laravel is an example of this because it's essentially remained unchanged since the inception of Laravel itself. If I showed you a Laravel 3 project, and you went to roots.php, which is what it used to be called, you would understand every single part of that root signature. And so because of that consistency over time, every part of a root signature holds great meaning to Laravel developers. You see parameters, you know exactly what's going on. You see certain middleware like auth or verified, you know exactly what's going on. You see a CRUD controller, you see roots that are familiar from a popular scaffolding project, and your brain starts ticking. All of this is possible because Laravel is ordinary and obvious. Now, there have been some really cool attempts to update routing in Laravel. I've played with a very popular package. It's so clever. It allows you to declare your routes using PHP attributes. You dive in the controller, drop an attribute in there, you feel cool, you feel modern, even using PHP. You think, yeah, I've got this. But I would never use that package in a large production application with lots of developers, because when I bring an experienced Laravel developer on board, what do? They open web.php, and they say, where are the routes? And I say, come sit down. We've been very clever. And for the next hour and a half, I take them through every controller and every method in every controller to give them the same basic overview they could have had in 5 to 10 minutes looking through web.php. So anytime I start a project, I try to keep that lesson from Laravel in mind. Be ordinary and obvious, not clever and convoluted. Try it. It'll do you so many favors. For our second lesson, why don't we take a look at the parrot show page. What kind of name is Chad for a parrot? This is a Faker, by the way. Faker thought of Chad, and I thought I'm buying a parrot and calling it Chad. What a name. Chad by name, Chad by nature. Anyway, here's our model for the day. You can see about him on the right-hand side, and underneath you'll note we have an index of outings, all the little trips that Chad has taken. And for each outing, we have a little satellite image, so we can see where he's had a chance to spread his wings. To provide that satellite image, I have a map image controller here. And the map image controller takes a latitude and longitude. We make a request to Mapbox, and we cache the response, and that's what we return to the user down here. Okay? Nothing special. I'm making use of 4 different Laravel services: cache, HTTP, config, and response. And I access those services using facades. That's what I want to talk about. If you want to start World War III, the fastest way to do it is to say that you like using facades on the internet. That's not the lesson. Why is there so much hatred around facades? I've seen the most horrible personal insults thrown at people from both sides over this seemingly simple feature in Laravel. Why? If we're being quite honest, facades break a couple of rules. They do. You can squirm in your seats all you want, but they break a couple of rules. What about inversion of control? Oh, we've always been taught as developers that you take your dependencies and you pass them down through the constructors. So how dare facades have access to the application and container instance? How dare they break through the ceiling and grab their dependency? Or perhaps you've heard that we should separate our concerns and everything should have a single responsibility. Well, facades have testing helpers baked right on the facade itself. You're mixing testing code with application code? You should burn for that. So what's the solution? The solution is to get on Twitter and to say that Taylor and the team know nothing about software architecture and are complete nincompoops. That was not a rehearsed word. Is that what you really believe? Is that what we believe? Do we really believe that Taylor and Jess and Tim and Nuno and Joe and Jane, I don't know about James, but the rest of them, do we really believe they don't understand software architecture? They have forgotten more about software architecture than I will ever learn. They are masters of their craft, and yet, despite that fact, they still create, promote, and use facades. What's going on? They believe that the benefits to developer experience and productivity outweigh the consequence of being a little naughty and breaking some rules. Let me show you some. All right, you can clap for that. Yeah. This became like super evident when I started writing tests using facades, because I was all against facades at one point. This test is so beautiful. The first thing is we break the separation of concerns. We have that HTTP fake helper, but the perfect thing about it is that we break the separation of concerns, because my brain instantly links this line here with this line here. I make a connection. I understand what's going on. I'm faking. I'm stubbing out the request. And so that gives me confidence when I make requests. I'm not going to be paying Mapbox to run my tests. I can also use that super cool assert sent helper to check I'm hitting the right domain. I could check I'm sending the access token correctly. I could check I'm sending the lat long parameters correctly, very, very easily. Why not use the cache facade? Check we're storing the key. Check that the value is as expected. And then why not make 2 requests to the application? Seeing as we're stubbing it out, we can be cheeky like that. And why don't we make sure that we only send a single request to Mapbox? Because the second request comes from the cache, right? These tests took me maybe 2.5 minutes to write. And most of the time, that was deciding on the description I wanted to use. So easy to write. So easy to read, so easy to maintain. I've tried both ways. And believe me, the developer experience facades provide is unparalleled. It's amazing. So what's the lesson? The lesson is that you should know the rules. You should understand solid. You should understand inversion of control. You should understand why we have separation of concerns. And you should understand, for goodness sake, that if you place 20 facades in one eloquent helper method, yes, you're going to have maintenance issues down the line. That's terrible coding. But once you know the rules and you understand why we have them, an experienced developer knows when to break them. And that tends to be when the benefits to developer experience and productivity outweigh the consequence of being a little bit naughty. If you want an application, no pun intended, but if you want an application of where this comes up in everyday life, it's in embracing the framework. If you embrace Laravel, you're breaking rules, right? Because technically speaking, you should have a boundary layer between any application code that you write and any framework code. So you should never be writing logic inside a controller. You should never be using the stringable helper or the collection helper directly. Everything should be hidden behind an interface. You break rules every time you embrace the framework. For what benefit? Well, your productivity and developer experience goes up because you're not worried about those things. What do you lose? You lose the ability to move to any other PHP framework at any time. Now, there are 700 plus of us here, right? Let's say we've all created 10 Laravel apps in our time. I think we've created many more than that. But let's be pessimistic and say 10. 7,000 projects between us. How many people here have legitimately needed to move from Laravel to another PHP, not another framework, another PHP framework? Raise of hands on a project. Can I have the lights up? Go on, show me your hands again. Okay, just the one guy. All right. So what you're saying is that you think your next project is going to be that Goldilocks 1 in 7,000 project that will need to move from Laravel to another PHP framework. Because if you need to move to another non-PHP framework, guess what, buddy? You've got to write all the app code again anyway, in a different language, right? So you've saved yourself nothing by avoiding using the framework. Embrace it. Learn the lesson from Laravel, know the rules, and know when to break them. Friends, in 25 minutes, we've discussed just 2 lessons. But as I said at the outset of the talk, every feature in this framework is a lesson. Every feature has something to teach you. And now you know the process. Take yourself out of the equation, slow down, and ask questions. Questions like, well, why does Laravel include Symfony components? Why was the pipeline class only recently documented? Why is Laravel prompts framework agnostic? Why have so many files been removed in Laravel 11? If you answer those questions, you're going to get actual knowledge that will improve you as a developer. And I know that as a fact because behind every one of those features, there are thousands of very intelligent open source developers. Taylor, the Laravel team, you and I who have contributed to the framework, and we have put all that experience on the table if you just learn the lesson from the Laravel framework. Well, that was a very serious note to end. So, Here's what I want to do. If you did answer during my talk, and I acknowledge that you answered during my talk, because about 40 people answered at one point, and I've not got that much stuff. Can you come on stage? Can you come up on stage? And Tobias, you come up as well, because I've embarrassed you. Come on, guys. Come on, don't be embarrassed. Come up on stage. You're going to love this swag. Whilst they're coming up. Come on, I know you answered. Come on, get up. Let me explain. 2 years ago, I was at LARACON 2022. One of the speakers, he was giving out swag. And I thought he was going to give stickers out. No, I know you bought stickers, Marcel. I'm not getting on at you. I always lose stickers in my bag. Forget about them. He didn't. Check these out. Socks, right? I thought, what a practical gift. I'll remember socks for ages. I'm always going to have these socks. So I thought, I don't want to bring stickers. I want to bring some real practical gifts that people will remember for a long time. So here we go. Thank you so much for contributing. I bought this candle for you. Thank you. All right? Hey, you're welcome. You want my friend? I've got these tea bags from the hotel room. Have those, eh? Guys, thanks so much for putting up with me. Have a fantastic LARACON. See you all soon. All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Thank you.
Good job. I cannot believe that you did that. So, I got time for 3 questions, if I may. Can I? So, first of all, James is asking, are you starting a beef with him?
No, I would say banter. No beef, just banter.
He's going back at you. So Tim is asking, tell us why breaking fixed programming rules sometimes is a good thing.
Did you not listen to the talk? Because sometimes you gain more than you lose. So you've got to do the maths equation, I think. I think that's what it is. Like, as we said, with the example of, say, embracing the framework, it's a simple maths equation, or math if you're from America. It's a simple maths equation is that there are so many projects where you won't have an issue by embracing the framework. Why pretend that that one project in 7,000 plus is going to be the project that you have to lose out on? And you lose so much in the way of productivity and headaches and frustration where you could just make lives easier and developers happier.
That's a good thing. And last question from the anonymous user. Do your wife know that you brought things from home?
Well, actually, when she suggested it, when I suggested it, she was very supportive, I thought. And she even picked out the baking tray as an idea. So I think she's all for this, yeah.
Okay, good for her. A big applause for her. Look.